Felicia is currently fighting a losing battle against gravity. Fueled by enough alcohol to sanitize a small hospital, she navigates the plush hotel corridor using the pinball method, bouncing off walls while muttering room numbers like they are complex launch codes. Spotting a door left slightly ajar, she decides it's close enough to a finish line and stumbles inside, blissfully unaware that she has just failed basic navigation. Inside sits a man who is decidedly not Cody, though Felicia's double vision begs to differ. While she giggles about Cody cloning himself, Mr. Tall, dark, and suspicious immediately assumes she is a hired femme fatale sent to honey trap him. She tries to act authoritative, but her legs resign from the union, and she collapses. He catches her, less with the tenderness of a lover and more with the efficiency of a baggage handler, and deposits her on the bed. When she whispers an invitation meant for her boyfriend. The stranger decides to call her bluff with icy resolve, and the scene fades to black. The morning after reality check, the sun rises with the specific intent of offending Felicia's eyes. Her head feels like a construction site, and her memory is buffering at 10%. She vaguely recalls the booze and the search for Cody, assuming the physical soreness implies a successful, albeit blurry, reunion. She calls out his name, expecting to see him. Then she freezes. A man stands by the window, calmly buttoning a white shirt. He turns, fully dressed in a sharp suit, and he is definitely not Cody. Felicia screams in shock, demanding to know who he is and why he's there. The man coolly replies that he should be asking her the same question. Despite herself, Felicia momentarily notices his striking looks. Dark eyes like black pearls and long curled lashes, before snapping out of it. Realizing she's naked under the duvet, she screams again and clutches the sheets, ordering him not to look. He scoffs, arrogantly claiming there's nothing left to hide and that he has no interest anyway. Furious, Felicia yells back. The man, unfazed, asks what she wants now that everything is done, money or something else. Insulted, Felicia explodes, calling him a dog and accusing him of stealing her first time. He ignores her anger, pulls out a checkbook, writes an amount, and tosses the check onto the bed, telling her to leave. Felicia's anger turns icy. She tears the check into pieces and lets them rain down. Then she wraps herself in a sheet, dresses quickly, pulls cash from her wallet, and shoves it into his chest. With biting sarcasm, she tells him she was very satisfied with his services, and walks out confidently. The man watches her leave, smirking, intrigued. Outside, Felicia's composure collapses. She notices the door number, 925, and realizes her devastating mistake. As her phone rings, Cody's name flashes on the screen. She answers, listening silently as he frantically explains that he searched for her all night and insists the engagement to Sue Murong was forced by his parents. Tears well as Felicia remembers his promises of eternal love, and the crushing words of his mother, who told her to leave him for his future's sake. Holding back sobs, Felicia tells Cody they'll talk later and hangs up. The truth becomes clear after being driven away by his mother. She drank for the first time, believing it would numb her pain, only to lose everything instead. Alone on the street, Felicia breaks down, realizing she can never go back to what they once were. In a dimly lit office, the man from the hotel sits stiffly in a high-backed chair, irritation etched into his cold expression. When his butler, Finian, arrives with the investigation results, he orders him to speak at once. Finian reports that the woman's name is Felicia Shen, 22 years old, an orphan whose parents died in a car accident. She is a top student, renowned for her talent in dance and design. After a brief pause, Finian reveals the most crucial detail. Felicia's boyfriend is Cody Liu, heir to the Liu Corporation. Finian continues, explaining that Cody Liu, 25, belongs to the richest family in S-City and is set to hold an engagement ceremony in 10 days with Sue Murong from the city's second wealthiest family. He concludes that Felicia must have been devastated by the news, leading her to drink until she blacked out and mistakenly entered the master's room. The office falls into suffocating silence. Finian feels his legs go weak under the pressure. Then the man speaks at last, issuing a single cold order. To capture her stunned, Finian blurts out a response, only to be sharply reprimanded. Realizing his mistake, he apologizes repeatedly and hurries away, while the man remains seated, his gaze dark and calculating. On the street, Felicia is still crouched on the ground, sobbing uncontrollably. A pair of shoes stops in front of her, and a polite voice asks if she is Miss Shen. Confused, she looks up through tear-filled eyes. Then everything goes blank. Felicia wakes in a soft bed bathed in sunlight, panic surging as she remembers collapsing on the street. The room around her is overly luxurious, filled with gold accents and expensive decor. Wearing a bathrobe, she steps toward the door, only to be met by a maid named May carrying fresh clothes. Felicia demands to know where she is, but May apologizes, explaining that she can only take care of her needs and that the master will answer everything later. Admitting she's starving, Felicia follows May through the massive mansion, stunned by its sheer scale. When the dining room doors open, she gasps at the enormous table piled high with food prepared solely for her. Without hesitation, she starts eating, delight flashing across her face. A quiet scoff echoes from the other end of the table. Felicia glances up and casually asks if the man is afraid the food is poisoned, leaving May horrified by her boldness. The man rises and steps into the light. Felicia freezes, the man from the hotel. Fear rushes through her, but she hides it behind sarcasm, mocking him and calling him Mr. 1 Million. His expression darkens instantly. He grips her chin, warning her never to use that name again and accusing her of lashing out because she feels humiliated. Enraged, Felicia demands to know who he is. He only smirks, saying it's far too late to ask. An ominous red glow flares around his hand as he seizes her with terrifying ease, pinning her down and taunting her by asking if Cody Liu ever treated her this way. Felicia screams and struggles, calling for help. Unable to bear the scene, May hurriedly leaves. The man tightens his hold, whispering that she should save her strength to scream later. Snow falls quietly over the mansion as night deepens. Inside the bedroom, time passes in silence. Felicia lies on the bed, tears streaming down her face, utterly broken. Fully dressed, the man watches her briefly before turning and leaving without a word. Once alone, Felicia drags herself into the bathroom. Standing under the shower, she scrubs her skin desperately, sobbing as she tries to erase his touch, rubbing herself raw while repeating that she has to wash it all away. As she tried to erase every trace of the previous day. Outside the bathroom, life in the mansion continued coldly. A maid answered a phone call from the master, who calmly asked whether Felicia was awake. Upon learning she was showering, he instructed them to prepare food for her, his tone indifferent and controlled. Back at the mansion, Felicia finally stepped out of the bathroom after nearly an hour, dizzy and exhausted. Opening the wardrobe, she froze. Inside was an entire collection of luxury women's clothing. She tried on a red dress that fit her perfectly, which only deepened her suspicion that the man was far from ordinary. Searching desperately for her phone, she rummaged through the drawers and instead found condoms, enraging her further. Realizing her phone was gone, she concluded it had been confiscated to keep her from escaping. Determined to leave, Felicia marched toward the door, only to be stopped by bodyguards who informed her she was forbidden to go anywhere without the master's permission. She argued fiercely, insisting she was free, but they stood firm. Furious, she threatened to destroy the expensive decor. When they didn't react, she smashed a large vase to pieces. Still, nothing changed. In frustration, she lashed out again, only to injure her foot, which began bleeding. The guards panicked. If the master's first female guest was hurt, they would be held responsible. As they rushed to check her injury, Felicia seized the chance, laughed sharply, and bolted past them. She ran out of the mansion, only to stop short at the edge of the sea, realizing there was no way out. Just then, the roar of blades filled the air as a black helicopter descended nearby. Waving frantically, Felicia screamed for help, claiming she was being held captive. As the helicopter landed, a man stepped out. Her heart sank. It was the master. Shocked, she demanded why it had to be him. Panic surged as she remembered smashing his antiques and failing to escape. Even so, she forced herself to stand tall, shouting that she wasn't afraid and accusing him of committing the crime first. The master studied her quietly, finding her defiance strangely amusing. Despite herself, Felicia admitted he was devastatingly handsome, far colder and darker than Cody's gentle warmth. Snapping out of it, she demanded to know when he would let her go home. His reply was chilling. She already knew the answer, pretending ignorance. She accused him of illegal imprisonment and demanded to leave immediately. He cornered her against the wall, asking why she had entered his hotel room in the first place. Flustered, Felicia admitted she was drunk and had walked into the wrong room. He stepped closer, clearly unconvinced, pressing her to explain what had truly happened that day. Her mind raced through fragmented memories, drinking at the bar, searching for Cody, a call from Kiki, and learning Cody was at the hotel. Annoyed by her distraction, the master snapped her back to attention. In that moment, Felicia suddenly realized something crucial. Sue Morong had been there. The possibility that she had been set up sent a chill through her. When the master slammed his hand beside her head, demanding answers, Felicia yelled back, insisting she had just figured out she might have been framed. He scoffed cruelly, mocking her background and asking who would bother framing someone like her. Leaning in, he coldly suggested she compensate him with money. Or her body, dismissively adding it wasn't worth much anyway. Enraged beyond restraint, Felicia screamed back, declaring that she had once been inheritance before her parents died in a car accident, leaving her an orphan. She glared at him fiercely, her pride and dignity burning despite everything. Felicia snaps back fiercely, leaning in and daring the man to judge her body himself if he truly believes it is worthless. Instead of anger, he laughs and pulls her into a close embrace, casually remarking that she actually doesn't feel half bad. His teasing indifference makes her seethe. In her mind, she imagines strangling him, but she forces herself to stay rational, reminding herself that escaping is more important than winning this fight. She repeats that entering his room was a genuine mistake and demands that he let her go. Deep down, she feels a bitter sense of relief. At least she hadn't given herself to Cody as she once intended, because their relationship now feels irreparably broken. The master coldly refuses, stating that she won't be released until his investigation is finished. When Felicia threatens to call the police, he mocks her mercilessly, reminding her that she was the one who initiated their encounter. Enraged, she swings at him, but he easily catches her wrist. She retaliates by kicking his shins again and again. Finian watches in horror, certain this will end badly, yet to everyone's shock the master actually smiles. His reaction makes Felicia recoil internally, suspecting there's something seriously wrong with him. Before the struggle can escalate further, an unmistakable sound breaks the tension. Felicia's stomach growls loudly. Mortified, she blushes and tries to hide her face. But the master hears it clearly. Amused, he remarks that she's practically tempting him to commit a crime, then adds that feeding her comes first. Without warning, he scoops her up in a princess carry. She protests loudly as he strides through the mansion, ignoring the stunned guards and a completely baffled Finian. Along the way, he mocks her flushed face and warns her to stay still unless she wants to worsen her blood loss. Felicia notices the shattered vases are still untouched, reinforcing her suspicion that they were never real antiques to begin with. He sets her down in the dining room before an extravagant breakfast spread. Starving, Felicia's resolve wavers, especially when she catches a fleeting warmth in his eyes as he tells her to eat. The contradiction confuses her. She tries to bargain, asking if finishing the meal will earn her freedom, but he rejects the idea outright, claiming his mood has worsened and generosity isn't something she should expect. As Felicia vents about wanting to go home, the master silently observes her, privately noting that she's fiery, rough around the edges, and nothing like a proper lady. He remarks that when he's in a bad mood, he has no energy to be kind. Felicia offers to investigate the matter herself if he lets her go, but he dismisses the idea, stating he trusts no one but himself. Pushed past her limit, she slams her hands on the table, shattering plates and scattering food. Calmly, he tells her that losing control only proves weakness, then orders the maid to clean up and bring another serving. When the replacement meal arrives, the two sit in heavy, suffocating silence. At last, the master uses the one thing he knows will work, Cody. He tells her that if she ever wants to see her lover again, she'd better eat. Gritting her teeth, Felicia grabs her fork and eats rapidly, demanding he keep his promise once she's done. The mention of Cody, however, visibly irritates him. Without warning, his temper explodes. He kicks the dining table over, sending food and porcelain crashing to the floor. Felicia freezes in terror as he rises, his expression cold and dangerous. Grabbing her wrist, he forcefully drags her out of the dining room and into a bedroom. He throws her onto the bed with such force that her vision spins, her hunger and fear combining into dizziness. As he removes his coat and loosens his shirt, his presence turns unmistakably predatory. Trembling, Felicia snatches a bedside lamp and holds it up as a weapon, warning him not to come any closer. He scoffs at her resistance, looming over her and coldly questioning her worth, cruelly implying that her body is the only thing she has left. Felicia shrank back on the bed as the master advanced on her, his presence crushing the air around her. In a last, desperate act of self-defense, she swung the heavy bedside lamp with all her strength. He dodged effortlessly, letting it smash against the floor, and stared down at her coldly, asking if she was actually trying to kill him. Felicia struggled to keep her defiance, but her body betrayed her. Hunger, fear, and exhaustion collided at once. Her vision narrowed, her strength drained, and with a faint moan she collapsed onto the floor and lost consciousness. At first, the master stood over her with suspicion, telling her not to pretend she was dead to escape him. When she failed to respond, his expression changed abruptly. Alarm flashed through his eyes, and he shouted for a doctor at the top of his lungs. Within moments, medical staff and a maid rushed in. A young male doctor froze briefly at the sight of Felicia lying unconscious, struck by how unreal she looked. Peaceful and fragile, like a fairy tale princess asleep amid chaos. The master immediately snapped at him, demanding to know if his eyes were only for decoration and ordering him to stop staring and examine her. Just as the doctor moved closer, the master abruptly stopped him and insisted that a female doctor handle the examination instead. The room fell silent as the staff exchanged stunned looks, quickly realizing how fiercely possessive their master was being. After checking Felicia, the female doctor reported that she had fainted due to extreme hunger and would wake up once an IV drip restored her strength, hesitating under the master's piercing gaze. She then added that Felicia was also suffering from severe exhaustion caused by excessive physical strain. The revelation left the staff reeling in shock, silently questioning the long-held rumors about the master's disinterest in women and realizing that nothing about this situation was as simple as it seemed. Felicia was finally settled into bed after treatment, and the master coldly ordered everyone to leave. The medical staff and maids withdrew at once, leaving him alone beside her. He sat quietly, watching her peaceful sleeping face, his expression tangled with guilt, concern, and emotions he himself didn't fully understand. Elsewhere, chaos reigned at Cody Liu's residence. His butler reported that despite searching the entire city, Miss Shen was still nowhere to be found. Cody's frustration bordered on collapse. When his fiancée, Su Marong, arrived and mockingly joked about the butler's name, Cody ignored her entirely, his mind consumed by Felicia. Convinced she was lost and waiting for him, he tried to rush out again, determined to keep searching. The butler desperately stopped him, reminding him that he hadn't eaten or slept for days and might collapse before ever finding her. Especially with his engagement ceremony just 2 days away, Cody violently shook him off, shouting that nothing mattered except finding Fei Fei. Left behind, the butler realized with dread how deeply unhinged his young master had become. Only Felicia's phone had been found, no ransom calls, no clues, feeding Cody's terrifying fear that he might never see her again. That night, Felicia drifted into a vivid dream. She encountered another version of herself, calm, radiant, and smiling gently. The woman urged her to live well and protect her pendant, calling it the key to unraveling all secrets. Confused and desperate for answers, Felicia questioned her, but the woman only smiled, saying she would understand one day before slowly walking away. Felicia cried out for her to stop, demanding to know who she was, but the figure vanished. Felicia awoke with a sharp gasp, startled to find the master sitting beside her bed. He softly reassured her that it had only been a dream and told her not to be afraid. Outside, even his subordinates were stunned by how gentle he had suddenly become. He asked about her condition in a tender voice so unlike his usual self that Felicia briefly wondered if she was hallucinating. Snapping back to reality, she harshly told him to leave. Unexpectedly, he apologized for being too rough that night and urged her to eat. He personally spoon-fed her warm porridge, carefully blowing on each bite. The maid May entered and revealed that the master had ordered the food reheated again and again, anticipating that Felicia would wake up hungry. He promised to leave once she finished eating. Though suspicious, Felicia was too hungry to refuse. Afterward, she told him to go. He quietly tucked the blanket around her, turned off the lights, and left, the room filled with an aching sense of solitude. Later, as Felicia slept again, she unknowingly smiled. The master, who had remained seated nearby, watched her silently, wondering what happy dream could make her smile so softly, and hoping it wasn't about him. Deep in his heart, a possessive vow formed one day, that smile would belong only to him. The next morning, Felicia went downstairs, where the cheerful maid Xiao Mei offered her breakfast. Felicia thanked her sincerely, shocking the maid, who admitted no one had ever shown her gratitude before. While eating, Felicia casually asked the date. When Xiao Mei replied that it was November 16th, Felicia froze. Today was Cody Lu's engagement ceremony. She rushed to the living room and turned on the television. The news was broadcasting the grand union of the Lu and Morong families. Reporters questioned Morong Shu about her absent fiancé and openly mentioned rumors of another woman, an ordinary girl with no background. Internally, Morong Shu seethed. She had liked Cody for years and had only secured the engagement through manipulation. Her resentment deepened as she remembered Shen Feifei, the woman Cody had truly loved 3 years ago, and feared that even now, after her disappearance, his heart still belonged to her. Before Morong Shu could answer properly, Cody's father stepped in, dismissing the rumors and claiming his son was merely delayed. At that moment, Cody arrived. Surrounded by reporters, he ignored every question and faced the cameras directly. With tears in his eyes, he openly confessed that there was indeed a girl he loved. Desperate and unrestrained, he shouted into the camera, begging Fei Fei to come back, confessing he couldn't live without her and was still searching everywhere for her. Back at the mansion, Felicia watched the broadcast in silence, tears streaming down her face as Cody's broken voice echoed through the screen. At the engagement venue, reporters immediately swarmed Cody Lu, relentlessly questioning whether he had shown up only because he couldn't find Fei Fei, and whether his appearance was a public confirmation of his feelings for the so-called ordinary woman. Cody ignored them all and continued speaking directly to the camera. With tears in his eyes, he reminded Felicia of a moment from their past, when she once asked how he always managed to find her whenever she got lost. Back then, he had pointed to his chest and told her it was because his heart was full of her, so he could always bring her home. His voice broke as he admitted that this time, he didn't know why he couldn't find her. Standing in the most visible place he could think of, he begged her to see him and come take him home. Watching from the side, Morong Shu clenched her fists in despair and fury, muttering that Shen Feifei had better never appear, or the consequences would be far worse than a ruined reputation. Back at the mansion, the master called Xiao Mei to ask if Felicia had eaten and what she was doing. Xiao Mei carefully confirmed that Felicia had eaten as instructed and truthfully recounted how Felicia had asked for the date, then rushed to watch television upon realizing it was the engagement day. The master ended the call without a word, leaving Xiao Mei confused and uneasy. Moments later, he abruptly ordered Finian to return to the castle and boarded a helicopter, his urgency unmistakable. He stormed into the living room and found Felicia sitting frozen before the television, tears streaming down her face as her body trembled with restrained sobs. She was so absorbed that she didn't notice him shut the door and turn off the TV. Startled, she looked up, her eyes red and wet. The master's expression was dark and conflicted. Felicia hastily wiped her tears and lashed out, blaming him for the miserable state she had been reduced to. She shouted that he had no right to isolate her from the outside world, demanding to know who he thought he was and whether he believed himself some feudal king. Her words rang with fury as she declared he had no qualifications to treat her that way. The two maids watching from the doorway trembled, whispering in shock that the girl must have a death wish to speak to the master like that. His gaze burned as he quietly asked if she truly hated him that much. Without warning, he pulled her into his arms, asserting that she had no right to judge his qualifications. Felicia struggled fiercely, cursing him and demanding to be released, but he refused to let go. Overcome by rage and despair, she bit his shoulder, causing the maids to gasp. Even when she bit him again, tearing his shirt and drawing blood, he didn't move, the atmosphere turning dangerously tense. He carried her back to the bedroom, threw her onto the bed, and restrained her despite her resistance. Tears filled his eyes as he accused her of crying for another man and losing control of his emotions. When it was over, Felicia was left sitting alone on the bed, her body marked, her mind seething with anger and humiliation. She rushed to the bathroom, scrubbing herself obsessively, disgusted by the lingering traces of him. Noticing the marks left behind, she broke down completely, splashing the water and screaming in frustration. After calming herself, Felicia dressed and sat quietly, realizing she couldn't continue waiting for empty promises. She dismissed the master's claim that he would release her after the investigation and resolved to escape on her own. Her thoughts returned to Cody and a memory surfaced. She had once asked him what he would do if she disappeared, and he had promised he would search for her until his heart stopped. Holding her pendant, Felicia prayed to her mother for strength, silently promising Cody she would return and begging him not to lose himself. At that moment, Xiao Mei entered the room and greeted her, surprised to find her awake. Felicia immediately asked where the young master was. Xiao Mei was startled to find Felicia already awake and asking about the young master, silently recalling how she herself hadn't slept all night due to the explosive argument before. She informed Felicia that the master hadn't returned yet. Felicia hid her delight, realizing this was the first time she hadn't seen him during the day. Clearly the perfect chance to plan her escape. Xiao Mei defensively explained that Felicia was usually asleep during daytime hours, which was why she never encountered him. When the maid offered lunch, Felicia quickly refused, claiming she wasn't hungry. Casually eating an apple, Felicia approached the two bodyguards guarding the area. They immediately informed her she wasn't allowed to go outside without permission. Smiling brightly, she commented on how sweet the apple was and even offered them a bite, leaving the guards bewildered. She then complained about how unbearably boring it was to stay inside all day and demanded to go for a walk. The guards firmly refused, citing the master's strict orders. Felicia switched tactics, smiling innocently and asking whether they were afraid she would run away. She gestured toward the endless sea, pointing out that there were no boats or helicopters, and swimming away would be suicidal. Though the guards hesitated, secretly agreeing with her logic, they still refused. Annoyed, Felicia called them blockheads and snapped that if they were worried, they could simply follow her. After all, she couldn't fly. The guards exchanged uneasy glances and whispered among themselves. Growing impatient, Felicia demanded a clear yes or no and shouted at them to move aside. One guard nervously said they needed the master's approval and asked her to wait. The first guard immediately called the master, reporting that Miss Shen had woken up and asked for him, which visibly surprised him. The second guard added that she wanted to go for a walk. To their confusion, the master suddenly smiled and agreed without hesitation, instructing them to let her go as long as they followed her. Though puzzled by the master's good mood, the guards obeyed. Felicia, overhearing the approval, was thrilled. She didn't care about his intentions, only that she finally had a chance to escape. She was taken outside to the beach of the private island, but her excitement quickly faded. All she saw were jagged rocks, an endless ocean, no fishermen's houses, no outsiders, not a single sign of help. Reality hit hard. There was absolutely no one who could help her leave this place. Dejected, she returned to her room, bitterly thinking how easy everything would be if she could fly. Suddenly, inspiration struck. She realized she could use the maid to contact the outside world. Calling Xiaomei over, Felicia asked to borrow her phone. Xiaomei panicked and explained that the master had strictly forbidden any communication with the outside world from the moment Felicia arrived. Furious, Felicia demanded she call the master immediately. In one swift motion, she snatched the phone herself. The moment the call connected, Felicia exploded, calling him a jerk and accusing him of going too far. Locking her up was one thing, but banning a simple phone call was unacceptable. Internally, she sneered that he must think she was some weak, sick cat just because she hadn't shown her claws. On the other end, the master smiled, amused by her anger, calling her cute and even praising her as a badass. Enraged by his mocking tone, Felicia shouted back, ordering him to let her make a call immediately. Xiaomei nearly collapsed in fear, begging her to stop speaking so disrespectfully. The master merely laughed, called her interesting, and told her to wait for his return, promising she could call him face to face. True to his word, the master returned soon after. Felicia confronted him immediately, telling him to cut the nonsense and give her phone back. He mocked her, asking if she truly thought he would. Felicia clarified that she didn't need help. She only wanted to tell Cody she was safe, insisting that once Cody knew, he wouldn't cause trouble. She warned him that if he refused, she couldn't guarantee what would happen next. The master laughed arrogantly, questioning whether she understood who she was threatening. Felicia answered firmly that she did, and shouted, "Asshole," straight at him. Unfazed, he twisted the insult into a shameless tease. Pretending she was complimenting his body. Pushed beyond her limit, Felicia suddenly kicked him hard in the same spot as before, this time entirely for Cody. His expression tightened briefly as he grabbed her foot and demanded to know why she would go this far for another man. He yanked her forward and threw her onto the bed. As he looked down at her pained face, an unfamiliar flicker of guilt surfaced, something he had never felt before. Just as he leaned over and reached out, Felicia shot up and slapped him hard across the face, leaving a red mark. Clutching her own stinging palm, she muttered irritably, "Hiss, what is your face made of? It's so hard!" Rubbing his reddened cheek, the master mockingly commented that Felicia clearly lacked proper training, sneering that her slap was inefficient and that mastering such a move required years of practice. With casual arrogance, he added that if he happened to be in a good mood, he might consider letting her make a phone call. Felicia snapped back, demanding to know how he could possibly be in a good mood now. Instead of answering, he abruptly announced that he wanted to take a bath, and coldly declared that Miss Shen would be the one to attend to him. Felicia protested furiously, insisting there were maids for such things. But he insisted that only she could improve his mood. Though furious and humiliated, Felicia swallowed her pride, silently deciding to endure it for the sake of her escape. She led him to the bathroom while he watched her with an amused smirk, wondering if her sudden obedience meant she was trying to please him. After preparing the bath, she informed him it was ready. The master lingered deliberately, remarking on how much she disliked him before ordering her to wash him, warning that refusing would only worsen his mood. Grinding her teeth, Felicia told him to come over and help remove his clothes. She nearly lost her temper mid-sentence but forced herself to endure, urging him to hurry instead. As she fumbled with the buttons of his shirt, the master teased her, asking if touching his body felt good. Fighting her disgust, Felicia replied in a small, sarcastic voice, pretending to agree and insulting him under her breath. Amused, he laughed and claimed he could tell she was enjoying herself, suggesting they get straight to the point. Startled and flustered, Felicia questioned what he meant, only for him to pull her closer and smugly remark on her honesty despite her denial. Her heart fluttered against her will, and she inwardly scolded herself for reacting at all. Without warning, he lifted her up and carried her away. The next morning, Felicia woke to an unusual silence and realized the helicopter was gone. She muttered that the stupid man was always busy. Hunger soon hit her, and as she prepared to get up, she noticed the master's phone lying on the bedside table. Picking it up, she saw a message from him. He told her to call whoever she wanted, warning that once he returned, she wouldn't get the chance. Felicia was stunned, then overjoyed, calling him stupid but secretly relieved. She hurriedly searched for Cody's number and finally found it. As she began dialing, tears welled up, forcing her to pause and steady herself. When the call connected, Cody's butler answered. Felicia identified herself and asked for Lu Chengyu, shocking him completely. Moments later, Cody's voice came through, panicked and disbelieving, desperately asking if it was really her and demanding to know where she was so he could come find her. Hearing his voice nearly shattered her resolve, but Felicia took a deep breath and forced herself to continue. Fighting back tears, she told Cody that this call was to end everything between them. She said they weren't suitable for each other and asked him not to disturb her life anymore. With trembling resolve, she wished him happiness and ended the call. On the other end, Cody was devastated. He desperately begged her to take back her words, insisting it had to be a joke, his voice breaking as he cried into the phone. Utterly destroyed by her final goodbye, Cody Lu's voice shook on the phone as he accused Felicia of speaking out of anger, refusing to believe she truly meant her cruel words. On the other end, Felicia cried silently, tears soaking her face, yet her resolve only hardened. She told him calmly that her words were sincere, that they belonged to completely different worlds, and that their relationship had been a mistake from the very beginning. Before Cody could plead or argue further, she ended everything with a firm declaration to break up and cut the call. The silence that followed crushed Cody. His phone slipped from his hand and shattered against the floor as his vision blurred. The emotional blow was too much. He collapsed unconscious. Servants rushed in, shouting for help and urgently calling for a doctor as the once proud young master lay motionless. On the isolated island, Felicia sat trembling in her room. She wiped away her tears and forced herself to stay strong, repeating that she had to forget him. Whispering a quiet goodbye, she promised herself she would never think of him again. Felicia soon realized that crying would change nothing. If she wanted to escape, she needed a plan. And she could rely on no one but herself. She needed to know where she was, but questioning the staff was impossible. Pulling open the heavy curtains, she was stunned by the vast ocean view outside. She quickly snapped a photo of the coastline and uploaded it using a newly created social media account, asking if anyone recognized the location. Replies poured in, but none were helpful. People admired the scenery, joked about honeymooning there, or even asked her where the place was. Frustrated, Felicia threw her phone aside. The internet was useless. The only way off the island was the master's helicopter, but she didn't know how to fly it. Still, she remembered that his subordinates did. Slowly, a dangerous idea formed. She needed to get close to the master. She began waiting for his return far more eagerly than she cared to admit. Days passed. She repeatedly asked her maid Xiao Mi about the master's whereabouts. Xiao Mei grew nervous and avoided answering. By the fourth day, Felicia's constant inquiries led Xiao Mei to misunderstand, assuming Felicia had fallen for the master. Felicia noticed but stayed silent. Realizing the misunderstanding might be useful, she retreated to the piano room to practice, and at last the roar of a helicopter echoed through the estate. The master returned and immediately asked about her. Hearing that she had been behaving well and asking about him constantly, a smug smile crossed his face. Certain she missed him, he headed straight to the piano room. Felicia's melancholic melody filled the air, and the master instantly sensed her lingering heartbreak for Cody. Jealousy flared. He slammed his hand down on the piano, abruptly stopping the music. Startled, Felicia looked up, confused by his sudden anger, but quickly remembered her plan. Forcing a bright smile, she greeted him warmly. Though he mocked her smile and warned her not to fake happiness, he allowed her to cook for him when she offered. Unbeknownst to Felicia, the master ordered Finian to activate the surveillance cameras. In the kitchen, her polite mask vanished. She viciously chopped vegetables, cursing him under her breath and imagining the knife was aimed at him. Finian watched in horror, while the master watched with amusement. Ordering Finian to leave, the master leaned back, eyes dark and possessive, enjoying every second of her fury on the screen. From the quiet of his study, the master watched the surveillance feed with lazy amusement, a smirk playing on his lips as Felicia muttered curses in the kitchen. Instead of anger, he found her fairy frustration oddly entertaining. Unaware of his gaze, Felicia moved into the next stage of her escape plan. From her pocket, she took out a bottle of sleeping pills, medicine she had obtained days earlier by pretending she suffered from insomnia. Crushing the pills into powder, she mixed them carefully into the dish she had prepared, smiling mischievously as she imagined the stupid man finally losing consciousness. Carrying the plate into the living room, she froze. The room was eerily quiet. The master lay sprawled on the couch, eyes closed, already asleep. Felicia studied him for a moment and grudgingly admitted that when he wasn't talking, he was dangerously handsome. Almost unfairly so. Irritated at herself for even thinking it, she called out to him. He opened his eyes briefly, glanced at her, then fell right back asleep. Realizing the food was unnecessary, Felicia quickly revised her plan. Instead of drugging him, she would restrain him and force him to send her away. She searched drawers for rope but found nothing. From the couch, the master cracked one eye open, watching her with interest, already knowing she wouldn't find any. When Felicia suddenly turned around, he immediately shut his eyes again. A sly smile spread across Felicia's face as inspiration struck. Remembering the stockings she was wearing, she lifted her skirt and peeled them off. Watching through barely opened eyelids, the master felt his face heat up, briefly misinterpreting her actions. His thoughts derailed completely until she tugged the stockings to test their strength and muttered that they were quite firm. Realizing her intention, the master decided to remain still and see how far she would go. Felicia efficiently bound his wrists, though she worried his strength might allow him to escape. To secure his legs, she climbed onto the couch and straddled him to reach his ankles. Feeling her weight, the master silently endured it, curiosity outweighing resistance. Once finished, Felicia muttered that there was one last thing and hurried away. The master opened his eyes, smiling genuinely as he flexed against the restraints, thinking it had been far too long since life felt this interesting. Hearing her footsteps return, he quickly pretended to be unconscious again. Felicia reappeared holding a sharp kitchen knife. She debated what to do next, mark his face, scare him, humiliate him, but decided she needed a pen. Assuming a wealthy businessman would carry one, she began patting his chest and pockets. Her closeness made the master's heart race as her hands moved over him, her scent filling his senses. He thought grimly that if she kept touching him, he might lose control. Failing to find a pen, Felicia sighed, only to jump back when he suddenly spoke. Calm and teasing, he asked whether his body felt good to touch. Furious, she raised the knife and reminded him he was tied up. Declaring that she would simply force him to order the helicopter, she pointed the blade at him. The master, unfazed, casually asked her to untie him. Feigning sweetness, Felicia leaned closer, pressing the flat of the knife to his cheek and threatening to ruin his expensive face. Her boldness darkened his gaze. When she declared that he wasn't the only handsome man in the world, jealousy flickered through his eyes, his voice turning cold as he warned her of consequences. Unshaken, Felicia stole his phone and demanded he order his men to prepare the helicopter. Still smiling arrogantly, he issued a vague threat instead. Finally losing patience, Felicia's gaze dropped lower. With a chilling grin, she pointed the knife at his most vulnerable spot and threatened to cut it off and feed it to him. For the first time, genuine panic crossed the master's face. Sweat beaded on his forehead. Seizing the moment, Felicia grabbed his bound hand and forcefully pressed his finger onto the phone's scanner, unlocking it at last. With the master's phone finally unlocked, Felicia scanned the contacts and immediately spotted Finian's name at the top. She briefly considered calling him but quickly dismissed the idea, realizing that speaking could expose her plan. Choosing caution, she typed a concise message instead, ordering the helicopter to be prepared for immediate departure. When Finian's phone chimed, he froze in shock. The young master almost never sent messages, let alone commands through text, and Finian couldn't help wondering if there was some hidden meaning behind it. Back in the room, Felicia smugly addressed her hostage as Mr. Moneybags and ordered him to move. The master shot her a furious glare, radiating authority even while bound. Felicia waved the knife and told herself she wouldn't be scared by his stare, only for him to calmly point out that she had tied his wrists so tightly he couldn't possibly walk. She paused, then burst into laughter, calling him an idiot and suggesting that if he couldn't walk, he could just jump. Humiliated and furious, the master snapped back in outrage, but Felicia shoved him forward without hesitation, telling him to stop wasting time. Forced to hop awkwardly toward the door, he muttered dark threats, warning her to pray she never fell back into his hands. Felicia ignored him completely, convinced that once she escaped into the outside world, he would never be able to find her again. They reached the entrance just as Finian appeared. His jaw dropped at the sight of his powerful master tied up and hopping like a rabbit. He panicked and shouted at Felicia to release him, but she rolled her eyes and pressed the knife closer to the master's neck as guards rushed in. Ordering everyone to move aside, she waited as the guards looked to their master for instructions. To Finian's shock, the master calmly told them to obey her. The path cleared and Felicia marched him toward the waiting helicopter. A luxurious black helicopter stood ready. Felicia stepped inside and stared in amazement at the plush leather interior. The master watched her reaction with amusement and casually remarked that this was nothing special. Seizing the opportunity, he began boasting about his wealth, offering her everything she could ever want if she stayed. Money, power, and a life others could only dream of. For a brief moment, Felicia admitted the offer was tempting, but anger quickly replaced the thought. She snapped at him for assuming she was shallow and raised the knife again, firmly rejecting him. Instead of anger, the master looked intrigued, realizing she truly wasn't like the others. To be safe during the flight, Felicia tied him even more securely to the seat. Confident he couldn't move, she explored the cabin and discovered a fully equipped kitchen. Ignoring him, she cooked herself noodles and eggs. The smell filled the space, and the master commented that it smelled good. Sitting across from him, Felicia ate cheerfully while he watched with visible displeasure. When she finally asked if he wanted some, he refused out of pride, until his stomach betrayed him with a loud growl. Felicia laughed mercilessly but eventually fed him herself, forcing him to open his mouth since his hands were bound. As she fed him, the master watched her intently, thinking that living like this forever didn't seem so bad. When he bit the chopsticks playfully, the helicopter landed. Breaking the moment, Felicia scolded him and fed him the last bites, including spicy soup he claimed to hate. When she asked why he drank it anyway, he flirted shamelessly, saying her cooking and she herself were especially delicious. Flustered, Felicia called him a bad guy just as Finian announced their arrival. The moment the door opened, Felicia ran out, cheering as she stepped onto the city streets, finally free from the nightmare island. Inside the helicopter, Finian asked if they should chase her. The master's playful expression vanished, replaced by cold determination as he gave a single command, "Wes." Finian cautiously asked about the fate of the castle they had just departed from. The master's expression was icy and merciless as he ordered the entire castle demolished within a single day. Finian was horrified, blurting out that the estate was worth hundreds of millions, but one sharp glare from the master silenced him instantly. Accepting a bottle of water, the master drank it in large gulps, trying to erase the lingering burn of the spicy noodles Felicia had fed him earlier. Elsewhere in France, Felicia wandered the busy streets, relieved to disappear into the crowd yet painfully aware of her dire situation. She had no passport, no money, and nowhere to go. It was only then she realized she was still holding the master's phone. Before she could decide what to do, the thunderous sound of a helicopter echoed overhead. Panic surged through her as she pressed herself against a wall, watching the familiar black helicopter sweep across the sky. When it failed to land, she exhaled in relief and quickly decided to sell the expensive phone to fund her escape. Back at a high-tech surveillance center, the master sat before a massive wall of screens monitoring the entire country. Finian proudly explained the system's reach, but the master interrupted him coldly and ordered Felicia to be located immediately. Within seconds, her image appeared on one of the screens. She had entered a mobile phone store. Leaning back with a faint smirk, the master instantly understood her plan and issued a chilling command: no one in the city was allowed to buy that phone. Finian, unsettled by the master's amused expression, rushed to relay the order. Inside the shop, Felicia confidently offered the phone. The clerk was initially enthusiastic, but just as the deal was about to close, the store phone rang. After answering, the clerk's face changed completely. Apologizing awkwardly, he claimed they could not purchase a global limited edition device. Confused but persistent, Felicia tried multiple stores, only to be rejected again and again. Exhausted and frustrated, she collapsed onto a bench as dusk settled, unaware that the master was watching her every step, enjoying her helplessness. As the sky darkened, Felicia's thoughts drifted back to Cody Liu. Memories of the 3 years he had devoted to pampering her flooded in. How he had taken care of everything so she never had to struggle. She remembered his words about deliberately making her dependent so she could never leave him. With bitter clarity, she realized she had lost her independence because of his love. Now, they were like parallel lines, forever unable to meet again. Tears streamed down her face. Watching from the surveillance room, the master, Ouyang Ruchen, felt an unfamiliar ache in his chest. He despised women's tears, yet seeing Felicia cry stirred something unsettling inside him. On the street, Felicia wiped her face and began singing a sorrowful song about farewell and lost love. Her voice was hauntingly beautiful, drawing a crowd that soon began applauding and tossing money at her feet. She smiled brightly, thanking them with the only French word she knew: mercy. Seeing this, the master burst into laughter, remarking that she was far more resourceful than he'd thought, while Finian shuddered at how terrifying that laughter sounded. With money finally in hand, Felicia rushed to the train station, only to be stopped once again. Tickets required a passport. Scanning the crowd, she spotted a young Chinese man and approached him with a pitiful expression. Introducing herself as Xiao A, she spun a tragic tale of an abusive husband who had beaten her and confiscated her passport, begging for help to return home. Captivated by her beauty, the man agreed. But as they sat together, his hand slid to her waist under the guise of comfort. Felicia stiffened, realizing his true intentions, yet endured it for the ticket. After purchasing them, he refused to hand hers over, suggesting they spend the hour before departure somewhere private. Knowing it was dangerous but seeing no alternative, Felicia followed him to a hotel restaurant. Inside a private room, he poured red wine and secretly drugged her glass, proposing a toast to their destiny. Sensing the trap, Felicia refused, claiming her husband forbade alcohol. When he insisted, she cleverly pushed the glass back, challenging him to drink first to prove he was a gentleman. Hesitating only briefly, the man laughed and drank it himself, confident he could handle the effects and overpower her if needed. Completely unaware that he had just fallen into Felicia's trap, the man could no longer restrain himself. He eagerly pulled Felicia toward him, promising to take good care of her. Fighting back nausea, Felicia shoved him away and forced a coy smile, pretending to be shy rather than disgusted. She told him not to rush and teased that she preferred something more exciting. As a reward for buying the tickets, she suggested serving him instead. Blended by lust, the man immediately agreed. Felicia then casually asked whether there were ropes available, claiming she liked it when her partner couldn't move. What she discovered shocked even her. Handcuffs, whips, and ropes were neatly prepared, revealing just how depraved the man truly was. Suppressing her revulsion, she picked up a pair of handcuffs and rope. Encouraged, the man hurriedly removed his shirt and urged her to be faster. Felicia calmly cuffed his wrists behind the chair and tightly bound his chest, while he giggled foolishly, believing it was all part of a game. The moment he was completely restrained, Felicia's expression turned ice cold. She slapped him hard across the face, declaring that someone like him wasn't even worthy of carrying her shoes. Stunned and confused, the man stammered uselessly as Felicia calmly took the train ticket from the table. Looking down at him with disgust, she announced she was leaving. Before exiting, she mockingly promised to inform the staff not to disturb him so he could enjoy himself alone. She hung a do not disturb sign on the door and walked away, leaving him bound, half naked, and humiliated. At the same time the master arrived in France, his presence radiating a murderous chill as if he instinctively sensed what had happened. Unaware of the storm gathering behind her, Felicia boarded the train successfully and watched the scenery rush past, relieved that she was finally heading home. Back at the restaurant, a waiter opened the private room and screamed upon discovering the restrained man. Panic erupted, only to be silenced when a group of men in black suits entered. The pervert demanded to know who they were. A red-haired man stepped forward, introducing himself as Han Shanggong, leader of the bodyguards loyal solely to Ouyang Ri-chen. Coldly, he informed the man that they were people who wanted his life. The man frantically protested that he had done nothing wrong. His pleas were ignored. Moments later, the master entered the room, his aura terrifyingly calm. Finian handed him a video camera recovered from the room. The master watched the footage showing the man touching Felicia and attempting to undress her. His eyes darkened dangerously. The pervert, finally understanding his fate, begged desperately, offering all his money in exchange for mercy. The master said nothing. He smashed the camera onto the table, shattering it, then issued a single, merciless command: throw the man into the sea to feed the sharks. The bodyguards dragged the screaming man away. Adjusting his suit, the master coldly ordered preparations to head to country S. 3 days later, night settled over S City. Felicia stood outside a high-rise apartment building, murmuring home. With a bitter smile, unsure she had ever truly had one. She remembered how Cody Liu had bought the apartment in her name without asking, quietly making her dependent. Shaking off the memories, she resolved to pack her belongings and leave forever. But when the elevator doors opened, she froze. Her suitcase was already in the hallway. The apartment door opened, and Su Murong stepped out, smug and triumphant. With cold contempt, Su declared that the apartment now belonged to her and Cody, ordering servants to throw Felicia out along with her. Trash. She then handed Felicia a wedding invitation. Felicia's hands trembled as she read it. Lu Chengyu and Murong Shu. The design was identical to the wedding invitation she had once planned with Cody, only the bride's name had changed. Su mocked her appearance and savored her victory. Holding back tears, Felicia forced a smile and wished them happiness. Annoyed by Felicia's composure, Su scoffed and declared they would be happy without her. Felicia turned and walked away, leaving both the apartment and her past behind. Only once she disappeared into the night did her tears fall, realizing that her blind love and dependence had left her with nothing, and that she now had to rebuild her life from zero. Tears pouring down her face as her chest ached, she clenched her fists, cursing herself for being weak and useless. No matter how hard she wiped her eyes or ordered herself to stop crying, the pain of losing everything refused to fade. Dragging her heavy suitcase, she wandered through the quiet streets, her lonely figure swallowed by the city lights. She had no destination. She was simply moving because standing still felt unbearable. Where should I go? The question echoed in her mind as despair dulled her awareness. Her foot suddenly slipped, and a sharp pain shot through her ankle. She staggered, biting back a cry as the sprain nearly sent her to the ground. Her lips trembled as she whispered into the darkness, calling softly for her parents, confessing how much she missed them. Her strength finally failed. Her body swayed, and she fell forward, bracing herself for the hard impact that never came. Instead, strong arms wrapped tightly around her waist, pulling her into a steady embrace. Felicia gasped and looked up. Under the glow of the streetlights stood Ouyang Ri-chen. His intense eyes met hers as he held her firmly against his chest, having caught her just in time. Staring at his handsome face, Felicia felt an unexpected sense of safety spread through her. In her fragile state, nestled in his arms, only one thought surfaced: how warm he felt. Under the cover of night, the master, Ouyang Ri-chen, carried the unconscious Felicia Shen into a luxurious downtown mansion and gently laid her onto a soft bed. When he tried to pull away, Felicia instinctively clutched his shirt in her sleep. He paused, studying her conflicted expression, then allowed her to rest. Noticing a crumpled envelope in her hand, he carefully removed it and found a wedding invitation sealed with the word love. As his eyes landed on the name Mu Rongshu, his expression instantly cooled. He questioned Finian, who nervously explained that Mu Rongshu was the eldest daughter of the Mu Rong family, the second, wealthiest family in S City, and was engaged to the Lu family's eldest son. With the wedding scheduled for January 1st, only 3 days away, the master scoffed at the title of second richest. While Finian silently panicked, sensing trouble, he reminded the master of an urgent meeting in France the next morning. Calmly, the master agreed and ordered preparations to be made. Before leaving, he turned back to Felicia, studying her sleeping face. He wondered whether she truly wasn't afraid of him. His gaze suddenly sharpened when he noticed swelling on her cheek. Rage flared as he realized someone had hurt her. Whispering Mu Rongshu's name with chilling intent, he reached out to touch Felicia's face. Even in sleep, she hissed in pain, briefly waking and mumbling that the jerk had appeared in her dreams again before drifting off. Amused, the master smiled faintly. At 5:08 a.m., he left the mansion, noting she hadn't slept so peacefully in a long time. Morning sunlight woke Felicia in an unfamiliar room. Taking in the extravagant decor, panic struck. This had to be the jerk's house. Memories of collapsing in the snow flooded back, and she couldn't believe he had found her in such a vast city. Determined to escape, she reasoned that if it truly was him, she had to sneak out immediately. If not, she would leave a thank you note. She dressed quickly and opened the door, only to collide with Finian. Both froze. Recovering, Finian politely greeted her and announced breakfast. Trying to hide her nerves, Felicia agreed to eat, mortified as she realized she had slept in the master's arms all night, thinking it was a dream. Finian warned her not to even think about escaping. He revealed that her previous escape had been allowed on purpose and that she could never leave unless the master permitted it. When Felicia nervously laughed and claimed she was happy, Finian relayed another message. The master would be away for 3 days. Felicia felt secretly thrilled, until Finian added that she could do whatever she wanted as long as he accompanied her and that she should behave and wait for the master to return and settle their previous account. Boldened by the master's absence, Felicia requested a walk. Finian agreed and followed closely. At a crowded plaza, Felicia delighted in the sea of people and suddenly disappeared into the crowd. Finian panicked, but moments later, Felicia found herself surrounded by black-suited bodyguards. Catching up, Finian explained calmly that no matter where she went, they would always find her first. Defeated but hungry, Felicia agreed to eat. At the restaurant, she was annoyed by the guards standing watch as she ate. Mocking their loyalty, she found Finian utterly hopeless when he proudly called serving the master a blessing. Afterward, she claimed she needed the restroom. Inside, she searched desperately for an exit, but the window barely opened. Frustrated, she emerged and insisted on buying warmer clothes. Finian hesitated but agreed. They stopped at a shop, and Finian froze. It was a lingerie store. Mortified, he stayed outside as ordered. Inside, Felicia grabbed the salesgirl's hands, urgently explaining that the rich man outside was following her and whispering a plan she needed help with. Outside, unease settled over Finian. Sensing something wrong, he rushed inside shouting her name, only to find the entrance completely empty. Inside the lingerie shop, Finian stood completely stunned as the salesgirl cheerfully handed him a receipt. She casually informed him that the lady had bought every single item in the store using an unlimited black card, the total amounting to 100,000 RMB. Before Finian could even react, the salesgirl delivered the final blow. Felicia had already slipped out through the back door, leaving a message saying she was going shopping, and that he shouldn't worry. To make matters worse, the girl winked and asked if he had a girlfriend. Finian's heart dropped. Ignoring everything else, he barked orders for his men to move immediately. Felicia's moment of victory lasted barely seconds. Outside, she found herself stranded on a deserted street with no taxis in sight. Cursing her luck and wondering why escape was always so cruel to her, she suddenly felt hope when a luxury car pulled up beside her. That hope shattered the moment she recognized the vehicle. The window rolled down, revealing Finian's polite but terrifying smile. Realizing she had nowhere to run, Felicia sighed in defeat and got in. The next morning, Finian walked into the villa to find Felicia clinging awkwardly to the top of the window frame. When questioned, she claimed she was doing pull-ups. Finian saw through the lie instantly and bluntly told her to stop wasting her strength. He reminded her that the entire city belonged to the young master and that escape was impossible. Completely drained, Felicia gave up and declared she wasn't trying to run anymore. She was just hungry. Relieved, Finian arranged food, and Felicia resigned herself to survival through eating rather than rebellion. The following day, Felicia asked to go out again. Finian hesitated but eventually agreed. As they drove through the city, Felicia stared out the window, her thoughts heavy. She suddenly remembered that Cody Lou's wedding was tomorrow, a reality she had almost forgotten while focusing on escape. Every street seemed to echo with memories of him. Without warning, a blue sports car screeched to a halt in front of them. Felicia froze as Cody and his fiancée, Su Marong, stepped out. Cody rushed over, asking if she was hurt. She answered quietly that she was fine, but his concern vanished in an instant, replaced by cold hatred. He accused her of putting on an act, then sneered that she had taken money from his mother to leave him. He demanded to know how much she wanted this time to disappear forever. Felicia was stunned. Realizing Cody believed she had sold their relationship, she chose silence. If hating her helped him move on, she would accept it. Taking her silence as confirmation, Cody warned her never to appear before him again and drove away. Back at the villa, Felicia finally pieced things together. She asked Finian to check her bank account. The results left her shaken. She had 1.1 million RMB. 100,000 was her own savings, but 1 million had been transferred by Cody's mother last month. She had been framed without even knowing it. Determined to return what didn't belong to her, Felicia asked for her bank card and calmly invited Finian to attend the wedding with her. Finian admired her resolve. Believing she truly matched the young master, he revealed that the master had anticipated everything and allowed her full freedom, but warned that interest would be collected later. Felicia barely processed the warning when Finian added that a world-class stylist had already been hired for the wedding. Upon hearing the name Jason, Felicia's eyes lit up. For the first time, excitement flickered through her heartbreak as she realized just how terrifyingly thorough the master truly was. Finian confirmed that the stylist waiting for them was indeed Jason, a legendary figure capable of turning even the most ordinary person into a breathtaking beauty. The moment Felicia heard his name, her eyes lit up with uncontrollable excitement. Jason wasn't just a stylist. He was a god in the fashion world. Without waiting another second, she rushed toward the door. Finian nearly had a heart attack chasing after her, yelling for her to slow down. Muttering under his breath, he feared that if the young master ever found out about her enthusiasm, he'd be sent to some frozen wasteland to watch polar bears for life. They arrived at NG's bridal shop, an opulent and elegant boutique. Felicia stepped inside glowing with anticipation, only for her smile to freeze when she spotted Sue Morong. Sue was equally shocked but quickly recovered, slipping into her usual condescending tone. She mocked Felicia for appearing at a bridal shop and sneered at her lack of money. Pretending generosity, Sue offered to buy her a gown so she could attend her wedding to Cody Liu, disguising her cruelty as sisterly kindness. Felicia found the act nauseating and replied coldly that she was there to meet someone, nothing more. Sue continued flaunting her connections, boasting that she could help Felicia find anyone she wanted. Finian calmly pointed out the man they were waiting for. Sue glanced over and saw a handsome man dressed in white. Assuming he was Felicia's boyfriend, she smirked in amusement. Felicia denied it and rushed forward before Sue could continue. The man was Jason. He greeted them with an easy smile, immediately charmed by Felicia's excitement. He admitted that the master had commissioned him to create a look, but he hadn't expected someone so pure and striking. To him, Felicia was already perfect. The moment Sue realized who he was, her attitude flipped. She stepped forward with a gentle smile, introducing herself flirtatiously. Jason's expression turned ice cold. He ignored her hand and bluntly told her to move aside. Laughing dryly, he said she had misunderstood the situation. Turning back to Felicia, he apologized for not recognizing her sooner. Confused and offended, Sue tried to smooth things over, but Jason didn't spare her. He exposed her hypocrisy, stating that her sudden gentleness only revealed how poisonous her heart truly was. Then came the fatal blow. Jason revealed that the bridal gown Sue desperately wanted, the one he had personally designed, did not suit someone like her. He ordered her to leave. Humiliated and furious, Sue stormed out, swearing vengeance on Felicia. With the disturbance gone, Jason apologized for his bluntness, explaining that he had no patience for people he disliked. Felicia laughed it off, joking that he shared the master's strange temperament. After discussing the design at length, she returned home. The next morning, rain poured endlessly as Felicia stared out the window, fully aware that the decisive day had arrived. Jason arrived early and wanted to begin immediately, but urged her to eat first, reminding her that today would be a battle. Felicia forced herself to eat, gathering strength. An hour later, Jason stepped back and announced he was done. Felicia stared into the mirror, stunned by her reflection. She thanked him sincerely, unable to believe her own transformation. Jason humbly replied that it was his honor. When they arrived at the church, Felicia stepped out wearing a striking black gown paired with white fur. Bold, elegant, and unforgettable. Finian waited outside as she entered. Inside, the ceremony was underway. As the priest announced the exchange of rings, whispers spread through the hall. Guests gasped as Felicia walked down the aisle, radiating a tragic, ethereal beauty. Sue froze in shock. Cody looked up and was completely stunned. Felicia watched him hold the ring and reminded herself that the past was over. A single tear slipped free. At Cody's side, Sue Morong played the perfect bride, loudly announcing that she had invited Felicia out of pity, emphasizing her orphan background. Instantly, whispers spread through the church. Guests judged Felicia's origins, mocking her inferior status, and speculating what disgraceful things she must have done to survive, let alone date a Liu family heir. The atmosphere exploded when Yanshan, Cody's mother, stormed forward in fury, demanding that the shameless woman leave at once. Calm and composed, Felicia replied that she had come because Sue Morong invited her. She then took out a bank card and held it toward Yanshan, stating clearly that she was there to return money that never belonged to her. She exposed how Yanshan had secretly transferred a massive sum to her account to ruin her reputation and demanded an apology. Cornered and enraged, Yanshan slapped the card from Felicia's hand, screaming that Felicia was nothing but a greedy woman who abandoned Cody for money. Unmoved, Felicia turned to Cody and stated she wasn't there to prove her innocence. She only wanted to sever all ties between them. Whether he loved her or hated her no longer mattered. She simply wished them happiness. She turned to leave, but Sue called after her with a smug smile, thanking her for the blessing. Before Felicia could take another step, a foot deliberately tripped her, followed by a splash of water that soaked her dress and fur stole. Morong Lan, Sue's younger sister, stood there with an empty cup, arrogantly accusing Felicia of bullying Sue. When questioned, Lan sneered that she splashed her simply because she felt like it. Sue rushed over, pretending concern for her sister while accusing Felicia of causing chaos out of jealousy and sabotaging her wedding gown the previous day. The crowd erupted, condemning Felicia as vicious and shameless. Cody watched in turmoil as Sue apologized theatrically to the guests. Disgusted, Felicia attempted to leave, but Lan blocked her path and called for security. At that moment, polished black shoes stepped forward and a cold voice ordered everyone to stop. Aoyang Ruchin appeared, his presence instantly freezing the hall. Mistaking him for a handsome guard, Lan blushed. The master scolded Felicia for being foolish, asking why she didn't splash the water back, declaring that only he was allowed to bully her. He draped his jacket over her shoulders and turned his icy gaze on Lan. When Lan stammered flirtatiously, she was cut off by a resounding slap. The hall fell into dead silence. Calmly wiping his hand, the master remarked that he didn't hit women. He was merely disciplining something senseless. Lan collapsed in pain as Sue and her mother screamed in outrage, accusing Felicia of provoking violence. The master pulled Felicia into his arms, darkly remarking that Lan could still talk, meaning he hadn't hit hard enough. When Finian confirmed that Cody and Sue had already registered their marriage, the master sneered, deciding to ruin the ceremony instead. As both families demanded to know who he was, he laughed coldly and issued a terrifying order within 1 hour. The Lu and Morong families were to disappear. Lu Jiaqing mocked him, threatening legal action. The master ignored him, lifting Felicia into his arms and carrying her out of the church despite her protests. Behind them, Cody stared helplessly, whispering her name as Sue clung to him in hysteria. Felicia soon fell asleep against the master's chest. Finian later confirmed everything had been settled and that all news had been blocked from reaching her. Meanwhile, chaos erupted at the Lu residence. Companies collapsed, capital chains broke, and operations were frozen. The Lu group went bankrupt overnight. As Moronghao stared at his ringing phone in terror, he finally realized the horrifying truth. The man they had mocked truly had the power to destroy them within an hour. The fallout from the wedding spread with terrifying speed. In his office, Moronghao received a frantic call from his staff. As he listened, his face drained of all color. The Morong group was bankrupt. The phone slipped from his trembling hand while his wife and daughters stared at him in disbelief. Losing control, Moronghao turned on Lu Jiaqing, grabbing him by the collar and roaring that the Lu family was finished as well. He accused Jiaqing of dragging the Morong family into ruin by offending that kid, destroying both families in less than an hour. Their alliance collapsed into mutual annihilation. The following day, the sun shone brightly, indifferent to the devastation. A luxury car stopped outside a high-end mall. Finian opened the door as the master stepped out with Felicia. Instantly, whispers erupted around them. People admired his striking appearance while speculating about the unknown woman beside him. Feeling uncomfortable under the attention, Felicia muttered that he was a show-off who loved flaunting himself. She tried to pull away, promising she wouldn't run, but the master merely smirked, saying he wasn't worried either way. Suddenly, a disheveled figure burst from the crowd. Morong Lan lunged forward, screaming insults and cursing Felicia for daring to appear again. Before anyone could react, she slapped Felicia hard across the face. The master's expression darkened instantly. He shoved Lan away so violently that she fell to the ground, then scolded Felicia for being foolish and not dodging in time, checking her cheek with irritation. Bodyguards immediately restrained Lan, but she continued screaming hysterically, accusing Felicia of disappearing for a month with some wild man and returning to destroy everyone. The master's gaze turned icy. Repeating the phrase slowly, he asked if Lan meant him. Realizing her mistake, Lan froze in terror, coldly. The master ordered her dragged away. As she was pulled off, Lan screamed one last time, accusing Felicia of shopping while Cody's family was destroyed. She revealed that Cody's father was now in jail and his uncle hospitalized, calling Felicia a plague that ruined everything. Felicia went pale. She grabbed a nearby newspaper and saw the headlines confirming it. The Lu and Morong families had gone bankrupt overnight. Trembling, she asked the master if he had done it. He answered simply, correct. On the ride back, silence filled the car. Guilt churned inside Felicia as she thought of Cody. The master noticed her distraction and felt jealousy flare. He knew exactly who she was thinking about. Back at the villa, he carried her straight to the bedroom and threw her onto the bed, furious that she dared ignore him while worrying about another man. He kissed her forcefully, biting her lip until blood appeared, staking his claim without hesitation. The next morning, sunlight streamed in, but Felicia felt trapped in a nightmare she couldn't escape. She found the master calmly eating breakfast and gathered her courage. Afterward, she asked him directly to spare the Lu family. Leaning back, he asked what benefit he would gain. Admitting she had nothing left, she asked what he wanted. The master slid a document across the table. It was a contract. Felicia's hands trembled as she read the title slavery contract. The terms were brutal. She would belong entirely to him, have no rights over her body or appearance, obey every order unconditionally, never look at other men, and publicly show affection toward him. The contract lasted 3 years, with a 10 million yuan penalty for violation. Calling it cruel, Felicia asked if she had another choice. The master replied calmly that she could refuse. But the Lu family's fate would remain unchanged. Staring at the paper, Felicia realized signing meant surrendering herself completely. As she agonized over the decision, the master watched in silence, fully confident of her eventual submission. Aoyang Ruchin stood up slowly, his tall frame casting a heavy shadow over Felicia, as he informed her in an indifferent tone that while he was willing to give her time to think, the Lu family did not have that privilege. They would collapse before she reached a decision. Turning away as if the matter were settled, he headed for the door. Panic struck Felicia instantly. She lunged forward, clutching the back of his vest with trembling fingers, breathlessly asking if she had decided fast enough. Aoyang turned back, eyes dropping to her hand before lifting to her determined face. Swallowing her fear, Felicia asked if she could add a few conditions to the agreement. Amused by her courage, he smirked and allowed it, limiting her to 3 demands. She raised her first finger, stating firmly that if her dignity was seriously threatened or she was forced into something she did not want, she had the right to refuse and he must respect that choice. Aoyang accepted casually. Raising her second finger, she requested that the contract period be reduced to 1 year. After studying her intently, he agreed, confident that a single year was more than enough to completely bind her to him. Her third condition was that under circumstances she opposed, he was not allowed to touch her and she must be given adequate freedom. Leaning close, Aoyang accepted all her terms and handed her the contract. After a brief hesitation, Felicia signed the name Shen Fei Fai. The moment she finished, Aoyang snatched the document away and coldly declared it a slavery contract. announcing that from now on she belonged entirely to him. When he reached out to touch her face, she flinched back, instantly souring his mood. He complained that he was hungry, then clarified with chilling intent that she was what he wanted to consume. Grabbing her wrist, he dragged her down the hallway, criticizing her sour expression and ordering her to practice smiling. Remembering the Liu family's fate, Felicia forced a stiff, painful smile and promised obedience. Later, a nervous servant named Finian presented Felicia's old phone. Unlocking it, Aiyang saw hundreds of missed calls and thousands of desperate messages from Cody Liu, filled with apologies, confusion, and fear for her safety. The wallpaper showed Felicia and Cody smiling together in happier times. Aiyang's grip tightened as jealousy surged. Exhausted and miserable, Felicia later fell asleep on a sofa until Finian woke her and led her to a forbidden hall known for punishing servants. Inside, beneath dazzling chandeliers, she noticed blood staining the floor. To her horror, men were dragging away a battered, bloodied figure. It was Cody. She screamed his name and rushed to him, dropping to her knees as he weakly said he was glad to finally see her. Crying, she promised to save him. Furious, Felicia confronted Aiyang, reminding him she had already signed the contract and that he had agreed to spare the Liu family. Cody then confessed that an accident had caused his memory loss and that his mother had deceived him. Though shocked, Felicia saw the murderous rage in Aiyang's eyes and realized Cody would be killed if she hesitated. Her demeanor shifted instantly. She insulted Cody cruelly, denying her feelings, then ran to Aiyang and threw herself into his arms, claiming she now liked him more because he was powerful, wealthy, and handsome. Though Aiyang saw through the act, he seized her chin and kissed her forcefully in front of Cody, asserting his dominance before ordering the guards to drag him away. As Cody screamed and begged her to leave with him, Felicia shouted harsh lies, claiming she would never choose a ruined man over someone who could destroy a family with a single gesture. At the Liu family apartment, Cody's parents were celebrating the inexplicable recovery of their bankrupt company. As his mother complained bitterly about Cody's obsession with Felicia, the door burst open. Finian, the master's assistant, dragged in a bloodied and unconscious Cody and dumped him onto the floor. Leaving behind a final warning, Finian stated that Cody had been spared only because of Miss Shen. If there was a next time, he said coldly, they would all meet in hell. Meanwhile, the Murong family fell into complete ruin. Su Murong and her sister panicked as news spread that their father had been sentenced to death for underworld crimes. Su soon received confirmation that the execution would take place the next day. With her family destroyed, her father condemned, her sister driven away, and Cody divorcing her, Su's world collapsed entirely. Consumed by rage and madness, she placed all the blame on Shen Fei. Her eyes burned with hatred as she swore to make Felicia die a miserable and painful death. Unaware of the trap closing in, Felicia later visited a department store and secretly searched Aiyang Ruchen's name online. What she discovered terrified her. He was known as the King of Asia, a man whose power and wealth were virtually limitless. Realizing she had no real control in their agreement, Felicia panicked. Determined to protect Cody and escape before it was too late, she decided to flee immediately. She created a desperate diversion by throwing her bag into a crowded area and deliberately falling to the ground. When the bodyguards rushed to her side, she hysterically ordered them to retrieve her bag, claiming it contained crucial items. As they scattered to search for it, Felicia seized the chance, slipping into the crowd and running without looking back, silently bidding farewell to her captors. Her escape lasted only moments. A shadowy figure suddenly blocked her path, and before she could react, a chemical-soaked cloth was pressed over her mouth. Her vision blurred as darkness consumed her. Felicia awoke bound in a dark warehouse. A woman approached with a cruel smile. It was Su Murong. Su mocked her, declaring that Felicia was finally in her hands. Back at the villa, Aiyang Ruchen erupted in fury upon discovering Felicia's disappearance. He berated his guards as useless and ordered an immediate, large-scale search to hunt her down. In the warehouse, Su revealed her murderous intent. When Felicia asked in confusion why she was being targeted despite leaving Cody, Su exploded, recounting her family's destruction, her father's death sentence, her sister's exile, and her mother's descent into madness. She blamed it all on Felicia and threatened to skin her alive. Su then revealed a final betrayal. Turning on the lights, she introduced another accomplice. Felicia froze in shock. It was Lin Kiki, her best friend. Lin Kiki sneered coldly, admitting she had framed Felicia years ago and destroyed her reputation. Consumed by jealousy, she confessed her hatred, blaming Felicia's beauty for stealing the man she loved. Heartbroken, Felicia finally realized that the friend she trusted for 4 years had been harboring lethal malice all along. Lin Kiki clapped her hands gleefully, her laughter sharp and cruel as she looked down at the bound Felicia. With a twisted smile, she mocked her former friend, asking how it felt to be betrayed by someone she once trusted. She taunted Felicia further, remarking that she had heard she was terrified of dogs, clearly relishing the fear flickering in Felicia's eyes. Tied helplessly to a chair, Felicia demanded to know what they intended to do. Lin KK ignored her question and casually ordered the men to bring them in. Ferocious dogs straining violently against their leashes. Lin KK explained coldly that the animals had been starved for days, then instructed the men to enjoy the show before she and Su Mirong turned to leave. The dogs roared, eyes glowing red with hunger. As the leashes were released, the pack lunged forward, teeth bared. Frozen in terror, Felicia watched them rush toward her. She squeezed her eyes shut and screamed, convinced she was about to die in this filthy, abandoned place. 3 days later, in a luxurious hospital room, Ayang Ruchin was consumed by uncontrollable rage. He roared at the doctors, demanding to know why Felicia still hadn't woken up despite their repeated assurances. Trembling, the medical staff knelt on the floor, explaining that she was not in mortal danger and simply needed time. Ayang lashed out, kicking them away and ordering them out of his sight. Finian cautiously stepped forward, urging Ayang to eat or rest, reminding him that he hadn't slept or drunk water for days. Ayang ignored his own condition entirely, focused solely on Felicia. Finian reassured him that she would recover, privately shocked. He had never seen his master so unhinged over anyone. Sitting by the bed, Ayang stared at Felicia's pale, bandaged face, memories of the rescue flashing through his mind. Storming the warehouse with a gun, killing without mercy, and holding her lifeless body while begging her to wake up, promising her anything if she survived. Suddenly, Felicia's fingers twitched. Ayang grabbed her hand instantly. In her delirium, she cried out for her parents and tried to push him away. He gently soothed her, whispering that she was safe. When she finally opened her eyes, she mistook the bright light for heaven before recognizing Ayang's face. Groggy, she asked if the bastard was dead. Relief softened Ayang's expression. He gripped her hand tightly, calling her an idiot and asking how he could ever let her die. Doctors were summoned and confirmed she would recover, cautioning against infection. Ayang thanked them, an action that stunned everyone. Alone again, Aoyang apologized quietly for failing to protect her. Felicia earnestly thanked him for saving her life. Overwhelmed, he pulled her into a tight embrace and promptly collapsed unconscious from exhaustion. Later, Felicia watched him sleep beside her, whispering a sincere thanks. Once recovered, Felicia asked about Su Marong and Lin Kei. Aoyang revealed they were detained nearby and asked how she wanted to deal with them. Insisting on seeing them, Felicia followed him to a dark room where both women lay bloodied and broken. Su screamed in hatred while Lin Kei crawled forward, begging for forgiveness. Felicia scoffed at the word, friendship. Suddenly, Su attacked Lin Kei in a frenzy. Aoyang calmly explained he had broken their limbs. Horrified, Felicia refused to show mercy. Looking at the women who tried to destroy her, she answered firmly that they would not be spared. She stated calmly that death would be far too merciful for the women who had tortured her. Ayang Ruchin's lips curved into a dark smile as he agreed without hesitation, clearly pleased to follow her decision. Turning to his men, Ayang issued a brutal order. Su Marong and Lin Kei were have their hands and legs disabled, each given a bowl and dragged into crowded streets to beg for money. He demanded they be displayed publicly so everyone could witness their disgrace, ordering the guards to keep them alive only to extend their suffering. As the women were dragged away screaming and pleading, their cries echoed through the hall, unanswered. Felicia watched them disappear, a trace of hesitation flickering across her face. Aoyang noticed and asked if she thought he was being too cruel. She shook her head firmly, reminding him that they had tried to kill her and that she would already be dead if he hadn't arrived. They deserved no mercy. Ayang praised her softly, calling her a good girl. He then mentioned that the guards who failed to protect her earlier would be punished. Alarmed, Felicia grabbed his arm and confessed that she had deliberately misled them during her escape. Far away in a lavish palace, a silver-haired man sat lazily on a throne as photographs of Felicia were presented to him. Xiao Hantian studied them with predatory interest, realizing that Ayang Ruchin's repeated trips to City S were all because of her. Amused, he ordered his men to prepare a gift for Ayang when the time was right, declaring that the game had finally become interesting. Back at the villa, the roar of a helicopter announced an unexpected arrival. Ayang stood by the landing pad, irritated while Finian pointed toward the mansion. Inside, a bright orange-haired young man waved enthusiastically, calling out, "Ice Mountain." The man, Ouyang Ju, complained loudly about his bad luck and cheerfully introduced himself, only to be ignored as Ayang walked past. Ju chased after him, whining until Ayang coldly asked whether he still considered him a brother. Ju grumbled that Ayang never acted like one, earning a rare smirk in return. At that moment, Felicia descended the stairs in a bathrobe, towel drying her wet hair. Ju blushed instantly, while Ayang's face darkened. He sharply ordered her back upstairs, scolding her for coming down like that. Confused, Felicia replied she only wanted milk.